I still remember very vividly the first time I stepped into an autonomous vehicle. The engineer opened the door, said, "You go sit behind the steering wheel." So I sat there, and he instructed me to drive to a highway stretch. And he said, "Now you press these two buttons, and then you can let go of the steering wheel." And that's when the magic happened. That's when I knew this was going to be something, right? This was fantastic. Within minutes, I was talking very excited to the engineer in the back, who urged me to look to the front of the car again, because it wasn't that safe yet that I could be talking to him all the time. So autonomous driving is, if you've experienced it, you know it. It's going to be huge, right? The benefits of it are just enormous. So I'll talk a bit about autonomous driving today. Then I'll ask one of our partners, Erik Koeling from Zenuity, to come on stage to explain some of the elements that we don't make. And then I dive a bit deeper in what the role of maps is, how we make those maps, and I guess you're dying to hear what the market size is of this opportunity. So I'll dive into that as well. So a few months actually after that experience in that vehicle, I was leading the autonomous driving unit of TomTom. Autonomous driving, it is happening. Yeah? The societal benefits are so big, the investments are so big, so huge, it is happening. Yeah? The safety advantages are enormous, right? There's every day 3,000 people dying across the world, and a multitude of that are getting injured because of vehicle accidents. It gives us comfort, right? If we have truly autonomous vehicles, we can actually look at our smartphone, we can work in the car, we can sleep. So it gives us back time that we're losing out on now in our commute or on holiday, right? Wouldn't it be great if you sort of step into your vehicle, you drive it to the highway, you press activate function, you drive to the south of France, and you turn around your chair and play games with your kids. So that's the comfort part. And the efficiency part, it'll change our cities. It will get to better fuel, lower fuel consumption, all of that stuff. So it's happening. What do you need for it? Well, you need 4 things to make it happen. First one is mapping. No surprise there. It's a very important element, and the higher the automation level, the more important maps become. You also need sensing, so you need sensors like cameras, and you need laser scanners or LiDARs, and you need radar to see what is around you and compare that to the map. You need a driving policy, meaning software that takes the decisions to go left or right, or to overtake. And you need actuators that actually replace your foot and your hands, right, on the gas pedal, on the brake, and the steering wheel. So if we now dive a little bit deeper on maps. Which maps do we make for autonomous driving? Well, they've been mentioned today. We make the ADAS map and the HD map, and I've plotted them here against the 6 levels of automation, right? Level 0 through to level 5, where level 0 is that a human controls everything in the car, but it can get warnings from sensors and maps, like you're driving over the speed limit. To level 5, where you can tell by the symbol, where you don't need a steering wheel, where you don't need a gas or brake pedal. It's all gone. That's still a little while away. We're now in mass production at level 2. A Tesla Autopilot is an example, as is the Volvo system. They can all keep lane and adjust speed. So they do, in technical terms, lateral and longitudinal control. So that's a level 2. A level 1 is typically an adaptive cruise control, where you still have to hold the steering wheel. So our ADAS map is used for the lower levels of automation, level 0, 1, 2. And our HD map is used for level 2, 3, 4, 5. And you see that there's an overlap in level 2, because we actually see both. We've sold both. We have level 2 systems on the road with an ADAS map. We have level 2 systems coming up with an HD map in production vehicles. To explain the difference very briefly, so an ADAS map, it has been mentioned many times in the presentation. An ADAS map is a road level map. So if you have a 5-lane highway, it's seen as one road. It'll have a lane count. It'll have one speed limit. It'll have one curvature, one gradient or slope. Whereas an HD map is a centimeter level accurate lane level map. So actually you know everything for each lane. If there is an exit lane, then that exit lane can have a separate speed limit, like in Germany that happens. So it's a road level map versus a centimeter level lane level map. So what's the role of maps? There are 3 roles that maps play in a car. One is perception, which is shown here, and I'll explain the picture. One is localization, and one is path planning. So how does a map help a car understand the environment around it? Well, here's one example. Let's say this is a picture from a front-facing camera in a car, and the car now has to decide, am I allowed to drive or not? It sees this bunch of red lights, and it has to make up its mind, right? How do you interpret this picture? Well, a map will help the car determine this. It'll tell you in which lane are you today, are you now. If you're in that lane, then it's that traffic light that applies, so it can tell the camera actually, look at that set of pixels, because that's where you're going to find a traffic light that you need to read, and that applies to your particular position. So it'll tell you, actually, it is okay to drive, right? It finds the green traffic lights. Localization is the second element, the second function of an HD map in a vehicle. So localization is needed because GPS, which is traditionally used to put yourself in a map, is not precise enough. It's not good enough. You need more. So we add special localization attributes to the map, things that a camera can see, or that a LiDAR can see, or that a radar can see. We add that to the map, and that can be compared to sensor readings, and if you then do the math, you can find out in which lane you are, which is kind of important. And once you know in which lane you are, you can also determine in which lanes the other vehicles are. That is not always trivial to determine, but quite important for decisions, right? If you're driving much faster than the vehicle next to you, like what would happen in Germany, and you're entering a curve, then it's quite hard to see whether the car ahead of you is in your lane or not. But with a map, you can get a much greater certainty that you can continue speeding, and you can safely pass the vehicle that is driving slower. That's an example. The third element where an HD map comes in is path planning. Eric already mentioned some examples. A simple example is if you're on a 5-lane highway or a 4-lane highway here, and it's a lot of traffic, then you want to know kilometers ahead actually that you need to start merging into the lanes to the right. And that's where an HD map can help you do that type of path planning, right? It plots all the vehicles, or the system can plot all the vehicles around you on that map, and it can see very far ahead, much further than the cameras can, because it knows in 2 kilometers you need to be on the exit lane. So that was how a map was used in a vehicle. Yeah, I've spoken about autonomous driving and the pillars of autonomous driving, and then the role of HD maps. So how do we make those maps? Just, very briefly. We master this because, as you have heard Alain say, we can build on a very long experience and a very wide experience as well, right? We master all the technologies that are needed. So what does it take? It takes centimeter level accuracy. It takes ultimately millions of sources. So sources can be our own survey vehicles or MoMA vehicles, mobile mapping vehicles, as Alain was calling them. They can be Zenuity cameras, can be other cameras. In the end, that will add up to millions of sources that are all differently calibrated and are made by different vendors and create different types of data. So millions of sources, and we have to do that in real time, as fast as possible, because the faster we can reflect changes in reality back in the car, in the map, the safer the whole experience will be, and the better the user experience will be in the end. Yeah, so if we go into a couple of examples on each of, in an example for each of these. So first this. So this is not a map. This is somewhere halfway through our production process, right? So we get a bunch of raw sensor data in, then somewhere halfway we're here, and then we try to abstract this into a map. Now, why is this special? If you look at this, you can see that you cannot get this from one drive. You cannot send out a survey vehicle or any other car and drive this in one go and have it all sort of fit. It takes many drives to do this. You can also see that there are no shadows in this. And if you have many drives, you need to combine them, right? And that needs to be at centimeter level accuracy. You can't have 2 lantern poles right next to each other, where in reality there's only one. You can't have 2 traffic signs and all of that. So that's what we're able to do at scale. And this is really leading edge, state-of-the-art application of technologies. This has been done scientifically on small areas, but never at the scale of the world. And we're doing it at the scale of the world. Yeah. Centimeter level accuracy. Then there's millions of sources. Here's one example. In the top left, yeah, it's left for you guys as well. Top left, you see a video image from a car driving. In this particular case, it is in Japan, in the area where the Olympics will be held, Odaiba. And so you see a car driving there with a camera, and it is registering information, much like Eric was also describing. It is registering road edges in purple. It's registering solid lines and dashed lines that are on the drivable surface in pink. And then below that video, you see how that is stored all the time, and that creates a rotogram. Yeah, that information, if you combine it all together, essentially creates a rotogram, and that's what we do with multiple partners, including Zenuity, to make to close that loop and get information about what's changing as quickly as possible. Millions of sources. And then finally, there's the real-time element of it. one part of being real-time is that you actually need to be able to stream maps to the vehicle. And that's what we do with AutoStream. It's like a Netflix or a Spotify, but then safe for maps for autonomous vehicles. So here's what it does. We're planning a route. This all happens on the navigation map. We're planning a route from Las Vegas to San Francisco. And that route is planned and is handed over to the autonomous driving system. And this is sort of takes you through the configuration. Yeah, a driver in a car would not do this, but this is how you would configure what data is then streamed, because bandwidth is a concern. So obviously we want the road elements, we want traffic signs for localization. We call our localization products road DNA. So the traffic signs we're going to put in road DNA signs, so that they can be compared with the camera and we can localize. We are going to put speed restrictions in, because we want to know that we're not autonomously driving over the speed limit. We're going to put another localization attribute in that works particularly well with radar, which we call road DNA roadside, which is that sort of Minecraft blocks next to the side of the road. And we're going to put in jam tail warnings, live data, plus explicit curvature and gradient. An HD map is so precise that you can calculate any curvature you want, but sometimes OEMs want that to be explicit, so that they don't have to calculate it in the vehicle. Now we're going to start and download only the relevant tiles that we need. So these are all the tiles between Las Vegas and San Francisco. And because the system is very smart and keeps a persistent cache, we can actually look for differences and only download where there have been changes. Again, to save bandwidth and to gain speed. The faster, the less you have to download, the faster you can actually start driving, which is happening here. So we've developed this. It's called AutoStream. When we started, people said that's not possible, right? An HD map is much bigger than a navigation map, and how on earth can you stream that? And we can't be dependent for a safety critical function on a cellular connection. But we managed to address all of those problems and created AutoStream, which is going to be in a production vehicle next year. So that's AutoStream. So that's the centimeter level accuracy, millions of sources in real time. So then we move to the final bit I promised, which was euro numbers. How big is this market? Yeah. What I'm showing here is multiple opportunities. So you see vertically, you see private vehicle automation. That's the level 2 and 3 and a little bit of level 4 in the future for private vehicles. Yeah, so vehicles that all of us would buy. Then there's robotaxis or shared vehicle automation. Different market, different business models, partially different technologies, but very similar maps. And there's one example of other. There's actually a larger category called other, but this is one example. Asset management for government, right? If you have all this very detailed data, you can actually also add and find things like lantern poles in the map. You can find electricity cabinets, all that stuff. That is of interest for municipalities and other governments. And then you see 2020, 2025, 2030. Now, if we look at private vehicle automation, in our own market model, we see that the market in 2020 is roughly 0.1 billion, right? This is what the model gives us. I'll explain a bit about that in a minute. By 2025, that has grown to 0.8 billion. And by 2030, it has grown to 3 billion. So there's an enormous growth in the private vehicle automation market. If we look at robotaxis, we think it looks like this. Yeah? Similar size, 0.1 billion in 2020. In 2025, not yet very big, 0.3 billion, a lot smaller than private vehicle automation. And then it'll go in 2030 when all of those difficult technology nuts have been cracked and there has been time for scaling, it'll be around 5 billion. Government, asset management, smaller market, few hundred million. Now, everything we do, and it's important to understand, and everything we project is only based on private vehicle automation. Yeah, that's what we focus on. That's the business where we are leading. That's where we want to win, and that's what's driving all of our decisions. Robotaxis will come, but it's upside in all of our projections. So if we go a little bit deeper into private vehicle automation, then this is part of our market model. So let me explain this to you. You see horizontally the years. On the left axis, you see tens of millions, or 20 million, 40 million cars that have a particular function. And on the right-hand side, you see percentages with attach rate. So how many of these cars will have an ADAS map or an HD map? Those are the two lines. And then the colors in the graph, light blue, medium blue, and dark blue, are level 0 and 1 combined, level 2 and 3 combined, level 4 and 5 combined. And what you see is that there's already on the road next year more than 60 million vehicles with level 0 and 1 functions. But they often don't use a map, right? The attach rate of maps is around 20% of ADAS map. As we see higher and higher automation coming in, at the level 2, 3 functions, we see also the attach rates of maps growing, with HD map growing faster than the ADAS map. And ultimately by 2030, we expect to see, or actually the analysts that we've based this model on expect to see level 4 or 5 private vehicles again. So these are not the robotaxis, being meaningful as well. Yeah, being a meaningful percentage of the total amount of vehicles. And you basically also see that nearly all vehicles will have some form of automation. Yeah, because we sell in the world about 100 million cars a year. That will grow a bit, but so that has gone in to those market estimates that I just gave, right? 0.8 billion in 2025 for private vehicles is based on this, on these take rates and these volumes. Now, what does that mean if we split it out? This is the ADAS map market. So you see again the same time scale. You see the total market value. And you see that by 2030, this is around 500 million. That's what you see all the way on the right-hand side. Not all of that is addressable. Part of it is in China, which we can't address, and that's the dark red part. Now, if we do this, and this grows about 20% per year, we expect, yeah, in ADAS map market value. If we do the same for HD map, it looks like this. Yeah, we actually see it's starting from a small base. We see a 60% growth over the next decade, 60% CAGR over the next decade, with a very large part, nearly 2 billion by 2030, addressable for us. Yeah, so this is what we work for every day, and this is what we try to capture as much of as possible. So where do we stand today? Well, the numbers have been mentioned before today. If you look what got us here, it's our competitive advantage. Yeah, we have experience with dealing with automotive customers, customer experience, customer intimacy, through our automotive sales force, everything that Antoine is doing, through our cumulative domain knowledge, our global presence, right? We are everywhere, both in map making as well as in sales. And if we're not there, we travel. Our independence, the Switzerland of maps, as Harold said in his introduction. That's one element of our competitive advantage in this space. Then we have leading technology. A lot has been said about that as well. Our transactional map making applies equally well to our ADAS map and our HD map, that's delivering the shortest cycle times. And we've built up a lot of technology over the years in artificial intelligence, computer vision, and what have you, right? That's also, all in all, giving us a leading technology position. And finally, we have a very complete, the most complete product portfolio in this space. You've seen Case talk about integration with navigation. We have the SD map. You need an SD map to be able to make an ADAS map. Right? An ADAS map is a road level map, and we attach attributes to that. You need an SD map. If you don't have that, you can't play. We have AutoStream, I mentioned that. We have services, they have been mentioned. And we actually can help to integrate all of those products into the vehicle, right? By working with partners where we do pre-integration. We have our own integration services. So all this together gives us a very strong competitive position. Nobody has the same set, so we're better than here in many of these things, and we're better than Google in many of these things. And that is translating into market share, right? More than 1 million vehicles, level 1 and 2, mostly level 2 actually, on the road today as we speak, powered by our ADAS map. Yeah, and we're learning from that every day. We get feedback from the OEMs. They tell us what they like about the map and what they would like to be improved, and we work with that, and we bring that in. In HD map, we're the current leader. We're the market share leader, the market leader also in technology. This is expressed as a market share of 60% out of all rewarded deals, sort of between, call it a year ago, 18 months ago, and 2 years from now, every single OEM will have made their HD map selection decision. At the point in time where we are now, we are at 60% market share based on awarded deals. That doesn't come out of nothing. It comes out of our competitive advantage that I just described, and out of working with all of these OEMs for a long time. Erik also mentioned how long we've already been working with Zenuity, even before Zenuity existed. We've been working with 4 out of the top 5 global OEMs when they were developing their test vehicles and their R&D vehicles. Right? We gave them map samples. That has translated for some of them into wins. We're the only company with a self-driving stack. The car is outside, right? We test our own map. We eat our own dog food, as they like to say on the West Coast. And we had many firsts in HD mapping. We were the first to file patents in 2009, the first to provide samples in 2013, the first to provide a country in 2015, and the first to cover the highways of the world, at least where those vehicles will drive, in 2017. Yeah? So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I think there's time for questions now.